Continue our focus on developments in Diepsloot today, where residents are accusing foreign nationals of being behind serious crime in the community. Let's talk more about the policing concerns then in that area. We're joined tonight by the Police and Prisons Civil Rights Union spokesperson Richard Mamabolo and Executive Director at the Human Rights Institute of South Africa, Corlett Letlojane. My thanks to you both and welcome to the program. Richard, let me begin with you because the main theme, or one of the main themes at least, from the interaction between Minister Cele and the community in Diepsloot today is that police simply don't have enough resources to deal with a serious crime issue. Is this an issue that you as a union were aware of in Diepsloot?
Most definitely, thanks for that. I think it's not only a Diepsloot matter alone, it's a national challenge that we have obviously been raising concerns about, because under such circumstances, it is quite common that you find where that in most of our communities there is a lack of service delivery, and this is mainly due to the shortages that have obviously encompassed a lot of police stations. So it's quite a common thing. It's not only a Diepsloot matter.
So the Police Minister, Richard, today has promised, among other things, that more personnel will be sent into Diepsloot, including members of the TRT unit, aka Amaperete, who are quite notorious in some parts of the country. He's also said that about 16 cars will be made available to the people of Diepsloot. That intervention, will it be enough to handle what's going on?
Look, this is a short-term intervention. We, of course, do welcome that there are such interventions, but what does it mean about the rest of other areas which face similar challenges? Because, like I said, it's not only a Diepsloot matter. So I think on the part of the minister, it's a short-term intervention. It is reactive instead of being proactive. And of course, how long? The question would be, how long will that intervention last? Because immediately when the uprising is quelled, it means that all these different units that are deployed to the area will then have to assume other duties which they were currently engaged in, and that does not resolve the long-term problem. So we think that the challenge has been that in dealing with some of these challenges that come up from time to time, the SAPS has become reactive. But again, it's a broader challenge, because when you look into the fact that we've got challenges with regards to the capacity of the SAPS as it stands, which currently has got a staff complement of around 177,000, having to look after a population of over 60 million. And of course, the other underlying challenge being that there's an uneven allocation of resources. So whatever intervention that the minister does, we think we should also as well look into how we consider such interventions across the spectrum, because this is not only a Diepsloot challenge. So in the short term, it might yield some positive results, but it's not something that is not a problem that we're dealing with in the long term.
Let me bring in Corlett then on the point that Richard was making, Corlett, about how reactionary the SAPS management is in this country, that it took a community protesting for 2 days, rejecting a visit by the Community Safety MEC for the Police Minister and the Commissioner to attend to such a serious issue. What does that say about the government and SAPS response to the crime emergency in this country, the crisis of crime, really?
Yeah, good evening. I just think that, you see, these protests that communities are always organizing. This happened after series of years of protesting, efforts made to engage the government, particularly to deal with certain issues. Right now is the issue of crime that has become so overbearing. I think those reports and engagement at local community level that are not bearing any fruit results in a situation whereby communities take law upon themselves, like it is happening. And it is true that we end up seeing us only responding by reaction. And our reaction is very violent, excessive, and becomes very indiscriminate to the extent that innocent citizens get affected. We need to come up with structures. In the past, there was times whereby when you approach a police station or a police service, they will be responding to you in a positive manner, in a manner that gives a sense that you are respected as a citizen. You are, your issues, are being taken seriously. Now we have a situation whereby one issue is being raised for many, many, many years. We have a situation whereby the circumstances on the ground are very unbearable. And the police, they are also applying what you call double standards. We will not see police behavior in a way they do in most impoverished communities, where there's poverty, where the areas like what is it called? And settlement. Yeah, like people living in townships, people living in shack dwellers. In those areas where there's poverty, there is definitely no protection and there is no care, to take care of the citizens, and also to indicate that actually we are a government that is caring. We are a government that understand that people can engage in such processes of participating in demonstration and also in solving problems. We have platforms, we have mechanisms, and the mechanism they are calling for platforms that are conducive, that are enabling, that we can sit and we can resolve our problems in a peaceful manner.
So, Corlett, on the issue of platforms and resolving issues, another issue that has come out of Diepsloot today has been a complaint from community members who say that they have seen migrants, undocumented or not, being involved in crime. How do we have that conversation about the involvement of migrants in crime in these poorer communities, especially because that's what we're hearing a lot about it and that's why we're bringing it up? How does that conversation happen without it being necessarily branded as xenophobic? Can both be true, that migrants are involved in crime and that there are elements in the community that are xenophobic?
Definitely. We cannot, target or point fingers at the migrants as the sole, group of people in the country that are committing crimes. The fact is that we have allowed situations such as this to reach disproportionate levels. There are collaborators or there are, syndicates that are actually engaging some of the migrants that are undocumented, that are vulnerable, that are in need of support. And our laws that will allow a person to enter the country who's applying for asylum, and we issue a document, and it's only a piece of paper that has been provided to an asylum seeker. An asylum seeker, where is the asylum seeker living? There is no shelter provided. There is no means of support, assistance. So definitely people can become vulnerable and end up becoming, potential, criminals and be used. So we are the ones that are opening doors to that, because this is not a new thing. It has been happening for many years, and we need to begin to identify the suspects, because we do have suspects within our communities that are using migrants. Okay. These migrants do not even know these areas where these crimes, they are being instructed. Somebody is instructing them.
The areas such as Diepsloot, people there will tell you that they know of migrants who are actively involved in crime and not necessarily being forced to participate in crime, and that when they bring it up, they are shut down and called xenophobic. And I want to talk about, you suggested platforms to deal with the issues. How do those conversations, how should they be held in communities where you talk about those both issues without one necessarily silencing the other?
Yes. I think what we need to do, we need to, for example, begin to go back to where we have community participation, community platforms, where meetings are held. We are now running a Women, Peace and Security. It is a platform that allows, South Africa has developed a national action plan to sustain peace in the country. And it empowers women to play a mediation role, to be peacekeepers and construction of peace in our communities. Now we cannot be discriminating and singling out other members in their communities only because they happen to be foreigners. We need to have social cohesion because the minute we separate, we are even victimizing. We don't even know if some of these suspects that are being identified, they are genuine. There are people that are suspect because there are those that are also behind, that are increasing the violence or the crimes that are being perpetrated by people that are vulnerable, people who do not have anything. Mm-hmm. There are community leaders, street committees, community policing forums that I believe they are still in existence. There are church groups. We have churches that are involved in communities. There are many structures in our communities. There are community like civil society organizations. There are NGOs that are running, community, participation processes whereby meetings are held even at police stations. We do have such areas where some police stations, they can conduct, ambiguous engagement to talk about the problems that they are facing. And also, let us not forget, citizens are always called to report the crimes to police. What happens when such reports are made? You become victimized. People fear that the minute they report this, they become victims. They become, they expose their life to danger because there's reprisals as well. Because we have seen that some members of the police are involved. We have cases that have been reported to us. One migrant who was working as a trader at Baragwanas last week, he was attacked by police who took money from him and his mobile phones. And that person, battle, he was traumatized because that was the livelihood, the only money that he earned for his family. Where do you report? He tried to go to some police station and nobody took his matter. Okay. So we do have some of these cases that are increasing, that are coming, and we are not able to address them.
We're running out of time, Richard. I'll let you have the final word and ask you about what we saw happen 2 hours ago, police using what appeared to be stun grenades and rubber bullets. We spoke to at least 2 people in Diepsloot who say they were not part of the demonstration, yet they were still fired at by members of the SAPS. Do you think that action was justified? What do you make of the response by police in Diepsloot today?
Look, I think the first point I want to make is that community members are an integral part of resolving the challenges around crime. It's not only a police matter that police can deal with alone. And of course, you would understand that our police are overstretched. And of course, under circumstances where there are such actions taken, there are obviously recourses that could be ensured, but it would not necessarily be the intention of police officers to harm any person that might not even be participating in the action that is taken. So it's quite unfortunate that it had to be that way, but it should not then therefore be seen as the manner, as if that is what characterizes the manner in which police actually deal with protests. I think there have been a number of reports and recommendations looking into past experiences, and police are being careful around how they actually deal with some of these protests that are coming up currently.
But the problem, I suppose, Richard, in 30 seconds, if you could respond within 30 seconds, the problem with that sort of response, if it is disproportionate, is that it also hardens feelings among community members towards members of the SAPS, and it is that breakdown in the relationship that precisely has led to what we've seen in Diepsloot over the past 2 days.
Well, under the circumstances, I would imagine that police obviously always try to restrain themselves in the manner in which they obviously engage with communities, and that is something we would obviously encourage. But again, there needs to be responsibility from both sides in that whenever there are protests, of course, there should be some level of calmness, which does not result in any unnecessary action being taken.